Hi everybody, I'm Timmy Mackey, the Communications Manager for the Southern Region Minority Supplier Development Council. And I am here to introduce Jason, who is going to tell you all about hacking and how to keep your business secure. So a little bit about Jason really quick. Jason Gage joined Autodesk as the Manager of Application Security in April 2020. In this role, Jason is responsible for driving Autodesk application security program to the next level of maturity, using his extensive experience in leading application security efforts across different industries. The application security team pushes to help ensure Autodesk products and services are built securely from the ground up by performing core application security practices like threat modeling, secure code reviews, and security testing. He has over 10 years of experience in software development and application security roles. His past positions include Manager of Application Security Engineering at Capital One, Application Security Analyst at General Electric Capital, and Web Developer at NASA. Jason is a proud native of New Orleans, a graduate of LSU, and a diehard Saints fan. He loves traveling domestically, internationally, and watching movies and trying out new restaurants. So without any more time wasted, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, Jason, so you can get to the interesting stuff. And I'll be back on towards the end to let you all know how you can win some prizes.
Awesome. Thanks, Timmy, for the introduction.
No problem.
So good morning, everyone, and I hope everyone has been staying safe during this time. My name is Jason Gage, and I'll be spending the next 20 to 25 minutes with you discussing the topic of, is your business hacker secure? And as Timmy went over the introduction, not much, to go off of what she said there in addition, but just understanding kind of, my background, 10 years experience in the cybersecurity realm, multiple roles with Capital One, GE, and NASA. And currently I'm in the Bay Area, San Francisco, California. I started a new role with Autodesk, a software company, and I'm managing the application security team there. And before we jump into the agenda today, I wanted to highlight some cybersecurity stats that are pretty alarming and pretty eye-opening. As you can see on the screen, we have about 6 bullet points that you can read through, dealing with a lot of the cost effective, in relation to damage, that's done by cybercrime or by hackers, getting into networks, getting into data, pulling data out. And we've heard about all the company data breaches such as Yahoo, Facebook, LinkedIn, just to name a few. And the impact to companies via breaches can be very, very monumental. Impacts could include financial loss, damage to reputation or to the brand, or even worse, company shutdown. And there have been cases where companies have been shut down because they just couldn't shake back. They just didn't have enough funding, enough budget to shake back from a cyber event. And as you can see here, the cost of dealing with breaches are extremely high. If you take a look at the first bullet point, you'll see $6 trillion spent annually in relation to the damage that's being done by cybercrime, and that's a lot of money. And typically in these cases where we see a lot of breaches, a lot of things happening, it's typically larger names, larger companies, larger businesses in the news and media outlets. But all company sizes are targeted. So small, medium, and large businesses are targeted. And from like the small and medium businesses side of the house, they typically get a reputation of not being as secure as these larger corporations. So they're targeted as well. You just don't hear their name a lot in the news or the media outlets. And then the question comes up is, why? Why do hackers do what they do? Why are there so many breaches? Why are there so many things going on in the world, around the world, related to these hacking activities? And there's a couple of reasons why. The motives for hackers could be financial gain. It could be some type of espionage activities. It can be for fun. Some people just do it for fun and recognition. It can be for revenge or some type of grudge. And then also taking advantage of errors and glitches in systems and applications. And so we'll deep dive into the agenda today. First bullet point, we'll discuss the attack vectors versus the attack surface. There's always been confusion around these two phrases, so I want to definitely dive a little bit deeper in that to give it a better explanation to kind of what those two phrases are to set up for success when we discuss our second topic of common attack vectors. And in order to understand kind of the concept of hacking and how things are going with that, you have to understand the ways and the methods hacking can occur. And this will be discussed later. And then within this same area, we will also discuss mitigation strategies, how you as an employee of a business, or how can your company, prevent this from happening. And then the third bullet point we'll discuss is, how can I safeguard my business? Collectively, how can we eliminate or mitigate opportunities for hacking to occur? And so when describing the attack vectors versus attack surface, I wanted to give a high level example of using the breach of Equifax in 2017. Most of you, I'm sure, have heard of this. And apologies if the graph on the screen seems a little small, but I'll give some more detail here in just a second. But I just want to give an overview of kind of what these two items and phrases look like, and kind of give a deep comparison on it. So if you look to the y-axis to the left side, this will display the attack vectors of the breach from Equifax. And what the attack vectors are is the path that the hacker takes, or the malware application uses to follow to compromise your data. So what way they can actually get in to breach you. The x-axis horizontally displays the devices and applications that Equifax had breached on their network. And if you look closely, you see plots on the graph here that are numbered. The plots, they represent the number of possible ways the attacker was able to get into that device or that network to extract data. For example, if you look to the left where you have the one on the plot point, you'll notice this is where there was an issue where a hacker was able to exploit a vulnerability of an unpatched vulnerability on a server. Right, so something wasn't patched. There was some issues with vulnerability management practices, and it allowed a hacker to go in and exploit a vulnerability on a server to pull out data. Similarly, on the second plot point, this is another example, right? Hackers were able to exploit a misconfiguration on a storage device. So something that was set up for them to store data, something wasn't configured right, that opened up kind of a gate, if you will, for a hacker or an attacker to come in and breach to pull data. And our second item on the agenda, we want to discuss a little bit more about the common attack vectors that are used by hackers. So as you can see here, we have 6 listed, and we'll go into more detail in the future slides. But just to give an overview, common attack vectors include compromised credentials, malicious insiders, missing or poor encryption, misconfiguration, phishing, and one of the newer ones that's been kind of up and coming is ransomware, or AKA cyber extortion. So let's jump right into compromised credentials. So this is one that we are all familiar with, right? Having a hacker can come in and extract usernames or passwords. Unsuspecting users can fall prey to phishing attempts that can reveal these things. This information can be gathered through other means, such as brute force attempts, right? Hackers can basically use what we call a dictionary attack, basically having hundreds of thousands of words and key names, keywords, to basically brute force and implement an automated attack into login credentials to determine, okay, is this something that I can break by using some of these dictionary words? And in some cases, this is actually an easy method. You can crack someone's username and password within 5 to 10 minutes if your password is very weak and it's easy to find out. And then as we've seen on the previous cyber stat slide, over 80% of breaches within hacking involve brute force or the use of stolen credentials. And when I'm speaking of this to my team members or to external parties, I'm always letting them know about password breaches being the keys to the kingdom, not only for your company but personally as well. There may be instances where you may have a Facebook login that gets compromised, but then they take those same credentials and they run those credentials across multiple different applications, whether that's LinkedIn, your banking information, Netflix, whatever it may be. They're able to use that and drive it across multiple applications. So how do we mitigate this? How do we ensure that we are strengthening our security around this? Well, one of the ways you can do that is within your company is password strength enforcement, and making sure that you have solidified and effective password policies to govern around the creation of passwords as well as the maintenance of passwords in relation to resets, and allowing, not allowing kind of, 4-character password is usually 8 characters or more. Also, not sharing passwords across services, just as I mentioned with the Facebook example. And then the other one is something that's been being used and implemented more frequently nowadays is MFA, or multi-factor authentication. This is defense in depth. So you notice on some of our cellular devices now, we have fingerprint sensors, we have Face ID, we have biometrics. That is a defense in depth mechanism where we're not, you can log into your phone with a password. You can log in with a 4-digit code. But there's also other means of logging in if something is compromised. So you have a backup defense there. The next one to discuss as far as a common attack vector is malicious insiders. So this is something that a lot of companies are dealing with, and it's a tough problem to handle because it's dealing with employees that are already within a network, right? They already kind of have, defense in depth is already broken because you already have someone in the network who can potentially be unhappy or disgruntled, and can do some serious damage. They can email themselves data or documents that are confidential. They can print those out and bring them home. They can also provide sensitive information or secrets to external parties. And mitigation strategies for this, it's pretty cost effective. You can have a data loss prevention program in place, an insider threat program in place where you're monitoring the anomalies or monitoring the capabilities of what the employees are doing. For instance, if you notice an employee typically is downloading, let's say 50 megabytes of data a week, and all of a sudden you have some tools in place to monitor kind of their usage, and all of a sudden you're seeing they're using a gig the next week, right? That's an anomaly detection. You're basically having reactive and detective measures to say, hey, we've logged and we've reported this. This is something that you can see and then investigate, and be able to clear up any type of malicious activity as much as possible. And of course, training is very important. Employee training is very important to not only understand kind of the issues that surround malicious activity with disgruntled employees or malicious insiders, but also reporting suspicious activities. Another avenue, which is a big one right now in the work from home, remote workspace right now, they're going to be dealing with COVID-19. This is a big issue with missing or poor encryption. This is ways where hackers can actually take your data as it's passing through communication with your network to the server or vice versa, and pulling your information down without you even knowing it. This type of attack is called a man-in-the-middle attack. And this can be done in multiple ways. I've always told friends, family, and anyone that I know to be careful of joining Wi-Fi networks that are unsecure or that you're not sure about. And these unsecured networks can happen in hotels, coffee shops, airports, just to name a few. And basically what's happening is a hacker can get onto the network and be able to sit and capture data being passed back and forth between the network and the server, capturing information. So if you're, for instance, if you're at an airport and you're logging into your bank account, and there is a malicious activity going on, someone can sit there on the network, take your username and your password, pass it along as nothing happened. You think you're just as normal, logging into your bank account, and from there, a hacker can actually have your information, sell it on a dark web, use it, log into your accounts. And as I mentioned before, they can not only use it for your bank account login, but also for other means if you have the same username and password. And ways to mitigate this is ensuring that for not only for your business and your company, but also internally as well, that you're ensuring that sensitive data is encrypted at all times, right? Using VPN, which is a virtual private network. This ensures that you have some type of coverage or defense in depth when data is being passed, whether you're on an unsecured network or not. This allows for your data to be encrypted, which makes it more tough for hackers to decrypt the information to use it against you. And then also mitigation strategies is, for your company is automated scanners, testing a lot, using monitoring tools. This can help examine the process and how it interacts between communication between systems and networks, and understand is there a gap there? Is data being passed in plain text across the network? Misconfiguration. This is a huge one. I've been involved in the past in breaches within companies I worked for, where there's been huge breaches that's cost a lot of money to fix, impacted millions of customers based off of simple misconfiguration. So when you're thinking about this in a sense of, okay, how can we, prevent this within my business? You're looking at kind of, if you're purchasing software off the shelf, or if you're onboarding an internal solution, you want to make sure that you're checking that you're not overdoing it with changes that are outside the initial settings, right? You want to make sure that the changes you're making are understood and understand the effects of those changes. You want to protect against all malware that can happen. You want to regularly update your software. You want to make sure that, some vendor supply tools, they automatically come with default credentials, default username, default password. You want to make sure that you are changing that upon onboarding that to your platform, because obviously hackers can use that as a simple attempt to log in, to change things, to open up exploits within your business. And then as we talked about for the encryption piece, the same thing with misconfiguration is running automated tools and scanners to detect issues quickly. This one, phishing, this is a big one. This has been around for a while, and it's actually one of the easiest attack vectors for hackers to use. And this is basically hackers targeting individuals via multiple methods, via text messaging, phone calls, mail, email, and basically trying to lure in victims to providing sensitive information. So whether that's personable identifiable information, PII, banking information, or your credentials. The reason why this is a very easy attack vector for hackers is because due to the human element. The human element is the largest security gap that we have right now. So you can have a fortified, secure application, devices, but all it takes is for an end user to provide credentials, whether they're clicking on a link or providing information, for someone to be able to log into the network, and it's very easy. They don't have to go through any type of defense in depth, any type of coding, anything like that. They're just using a human being to actually exploit. And the ways to mitigate this is training. This is very, very key. And as I mentioned before, this is the largest security gap that we have that is tough to defend against, because you're going by the human element. But knowledge, continued training can help keep awareness high, and hold employees accountable for their activities and their actions. And in order to kind of push this into your employees as well, is continue to do internal tests, right? So I've been involved with situations where the company would roll out from the enterprise-wide, roll out phishing attempts and phishing campaigns, just to see, and test the knowledge and the expertise of the employee to see if they're actually reported. And then scoring it and keeping logs and keeping metrics of that, because you want to make sure you're ensuring that company-wide you're getting kind of the best bang for your buck with the training and making sure that it's pretty effective. And the last common attack vector that we'll talk about is ransomware, which is AKA cyber extortion. This is one that has been up and coming and been used more so on the small and medium business side, but I've also heard and seen and read about some large businesses being victims of ransomware. And what this is basically hackers can access your data, then encrypt it. So whether it's through coding means, if it's through phishing attempts, hackers can access your data, then encrypt it. So where you don't have the decryption key, there's no way for you to unlock this information or get it back. So they hold it for ransom, and then they come back to you personally or to the company and say, hey, we have your information. If you want to decrypt it, you will have to pay us a ransom. And so a lot of companies have been struggling to prevent, against this, right? I think now this is up and coming. So there's more teeth around kind of the prevention methods and making sure that companies are aware. So there's been activities around that and funding around it as of late, but kind of in the beginning stages, this was a very effective way for hackers to gain financial status and be able to continue their hacking processes. And basically for mitigation methods, you can ensure that, vulnerability and patch management processes are in place, making sure that, your operating systems, your servers, any ways that you have for a hacker to come in, that's being fortified and solidified. Having a business continuity strategy if the data, if you're without data for an extended period of time. So let's say someone takes your data, you need it, there's documents you need to keep the business going. Understanding a business continuity strategy if in the event that you have data loss or data is encrypted, how do you move forward, right? Backing up data often is very, very key because that allows you to have kind of a fallback option if anything happens with the data. And defense in depth, I keep mentioning the defense in depth, but that's key, right? Not allowing someone to just be able to just do one thing and then they're able to just kind of go wild and go crazy into your networks, into your systems, but making it tougher. If they get through to some way, it should be, tougher to the next way and then tougher the next way as far as defense in depth. And for the last slide, this here is going to give an overview of just how can I safeguard my business in its entirety. One thing at Autodesk, my current role, I preach and speak to a lot of development teams on is threat modeling and attack surface analysis. This is extremely, extremely key to be able to identify security issues during the design phase. For small and medium businesses, this is something that can be done pretty quickly and may not take that much work given just the nature of the size of the company. For larger companies and larger corporations, this will be a very, very large and heavy lift process. But it's very, very key in identifying the security issues early and often so that you're proactive with your security measures. Also, consistent testing for security vulnerabilities, understanding where do the security vulnerabilities and exploits and risks lie, continuing to do that across multiple areas, applications, devices, networks, servers. And then identifying high risk areas that may need additional protection. As we mentioned, defense in depth. What places should we make sure that if a hacker gets in, he or she cannot go further in to get the crown jewels or get the documents or the data that they're looking for. Second one is secure networks. We talked about this, encrypting data at rest, making sure that you're encrypting data at rest in transit and in processing, eliminating and making it harder for hackers to steal data in plain text as it's being transmitted through the network to the server. Third, improving password protection. Fourth, holding employees accountable. We talked about this, training and enforcement. Fifth, limiting the data access. So identifying the sensitive data and then taking steps to ensure that it's encrypted. Using monitoring tools to expose suspicious activities for unauthorized attempts to access data, and logging, right? Making sure that, as a company, you have an idea of who's going in, who has the credentials, who has the authorization, authentication to actually get into these type of areas to pull data, or potentially could be a malicious insider. And then lastly, backing up data, as we mentioned on the previous slide, having a business continuity strategy, lessening time to recover from cybersecurity events or data corruption. And that concludes my presentation for Is Your Business Hacker Secure?
Thank you so much, Jason. We really appreciate it. So I will take this time to have anybody. Okay, Lawrence has some questions. Really quickly, Jason, I'm gonna let you look over his questions while I let everybody know that there are some giveaway opportunities going on right now. So for this session, Jackson Offshore has sponsored 2 hotel stays worth $100. And then also Choctaw Call has sponsored 2 COVID comfort baskets. So The way that you would win these is if you head over to our social media accounts, Facebook or Instagram, whichever one you prefer. The first 2 people to like and comment on these posts will receive one of the prizes. And then also the first 2 people to repost and tag us at SRMSDC or Southern Region MSDC will receive these prizes. Jason, it looks like Lawrence asked, what programs do you suggest to protect your systems at work and at home? That's the first part of his question.
Yeah, Lauren, thanks for the question. So I would say initially, any type of VPN software is key. That's kind of like your baseline, right? Making sure that whether you're at work, whether you're on a home network or maybe airport, coffee shop, wherever they may be, that will be your first key piece of software that you need to have is VPN that allows your data transfer and your encryption to be structured. That you're not just passing data through in plain text. There's a myriad of other options to use to protect and scan your networks. There's open source opportunities for you to get and applications for you to get that you can search for. I don't want to name like 1 or 2 because I think there's whatever fits your need. But there's a lot of free open source tools that you can use to keep your personal machine secure, as well as company. But I would say 2 things would be basically, having a VPN and then having something to actually scan to see, okay, is there any vulnerabilities that you have open from a configuration perspective, applications that you're using, finding a way to scan those, right? Whether that's through an automated means or manually secure reviews. Those would be kind of my recommendations.
Awesome. So glad we snuck that question in because we're actually right at the end of our time. But I do want to encourage everybody, if you go click Spark Networking over on the left side of your screen, you can network and meet people one-on-one. It's timed, so it's very brief. And then shortly after that, you can join us for our very last session of the day. So Jason, again, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Bye.